The moment I knew my marriage was over wasn't when I saw my wife with another man. It was when I realized I didn't feel angry anymore, just tired. That night started with something small. A notification on my phone while I was still at work in downtown Chicago telling me that my wife, Rachel Carter, had booked a Valentine's dinner at Bellamy's, a place that meant everything to us because it was where I had proposed to her 8 years ago and where we celebrated promotions and birthdays. The place we always called ours. For a brief moment, I actually smiled because Rachel wasn't the type to plan surprises. She was organized, predictable, and always focused on control. While I handled the emotions and effort in our marriage, so seeing that reservation under her name felt different, almost special, and I thought maybe she was trying to fix something I didn't even realize was broken. I left work early that day, bought her favorite wine, and picked up a small gift. A delicate silver bracelet I knew she had been looking at weeks ago, and for once I allowed myself to feel excited. But by the time evening came, everything shifted because instead of getting ready or calling me, I received a short message that said she was running late due to an emergency at work and told me not to wait up. And that was it, with no apology or explanation, just distance. And I stared at the message longer than I should have because something about it felt rehearsed and cold, like it wasn't even meant for me, but sent out of habit. Yet I didn't react and told myself she was busy, that this was normal, that this was marriage, even though deep down something didn't feel right. Later that night, I was lying in bed wide awake, scrolling through my phone without really knowing what I was looking for. Maybe distraction, or maybe proof that I was overthinking, and then I saw it. A post from a guy named Ethan Brooks, one of Rachel's junior analysts, whose name I had heard before in passing. Nothing important, just another coworker. But the caption made my stomach drop as it read that only someone who truly cares knows how to make a night unforgettable, and below it was a photo of Rachel sitting very close to him, not just beside him, but in a way that felt intimate. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her in like she belonged. There while she wasn't pulling away or looking uncomfortable. Instead, she was smiling softly in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. And around her neck was the necklace I had given her that morning while on the table, was the same wine I had carefully wrapped for her before she left for work. The restaurant was Bellamy's. My chest didn't tighten the way I expected and my hands didn't shake. I didn't feel that explosive anger you see in movies. Instead, it felt like something inside me quietly shut off like a switch. Because in the past I would have called her immediately or driven straight there and demanded answers. But this time I just stared at the screen and exhaled as everything suddenly made sense. The late nights, the missed calls, the way she had slowly stopped noticing me, and I realized this wasn't new. I had just been late to accepting it. When Rachel finally came home past midnight, I was sitting at the kitchen table under a dim yellow light, eating something I hadn't touched in years. Mango, which was significant because Rachel was severely allergic to it. Not mildly, but to the point where even a small amount could cause her skin to break out and her throat to tighten. And because of that, I had removed mango completely from my life for 8 years, avoiding it in every form. But that night I bought it, cut it, sat there eating it slowly. And when she walked in, she stopped at the entrance as her eyes moved from my face to the plate in front of me with visible confusion, asking why I was eating mango in a tight voice. While I didn't answer right away and simply watched her, noticing her slightly messy hair and the faint scent of perfume mixed with something unfamiliar, something like smoke, before my eyes dropped to the small gift bag in her hand. She walked over, placed the bag on the table, and forced a small smile as she wished me a happy Valentine's Day. As if nothing had happened, and as if she hadn't just spent the evening with another man. And inside the bag was an expensive watch that was carefully chosen and thoughtful, which was exactly like Rachel because she never forgot the performance of love, even when she had forgotten its meaning. And I nodded slightly, thanked her, and went back to eating while the silence between us stretched heavy and uncomfortable. Until she frowned again and reminded me that she was allergic to what I was eating in a tone that sounded almost accusing. And when I looked up at her calmly and said that I knew, it was the first time she hesitated because something in my tone must have felt different. She didn't push further and instead stepped closer as her voice softened into something almost teasing, asking if I was really going to just sit there on Valentine's night while leaning in slightly as if she was about to kiss me. And for a brief moment, I didn't move before stepping back and quietly telling her she shouldn't because I had just eaten mango. And she froze completely as I watched the realization hit her. Not about the allergy, but about me, about the distance. That had suddenly become undeniable, and the fact that something had changed. Yet I didn't explain anything or ask any questions or accuse her of what I had seen. I simply turned around and walked toward the bedroom. For the first time in years, I locked the door behind me. And that night, while lying in the dark, I made a decision I should have made long ago. Not out of anger or revenge, but out of clarity. Because if she could walk away from us that easily, then I could walk away from her completely. And this time, I knew I wasn't coming back. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a minute. I just lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying everything I had ignored for months, maybe even years. It's strange how the mind works. When you love someone you don't see, clearly you adjust, you excuse. You explain things away until the truth becomes something you actively avoid. But once that illusion breaks, everything becomes painfully obvious. Every late reply, every canceled plan, every time she said she was too busy, suddenly rearranged itself into a pattern I could no longer deny. Rachel and I had been together for over a decade. We met in high school in a quiet suburb outside Chicago, and back then she was nothing like the woman I saw in that photo. She was reserved, focused, and distant in a way that made people think she didn't care about anything. But I knew better. I had seen the version of her that no one else had. The girl who would silently sit next to me during exams just to calm my nerves. The one who would scold me for skipping meals but somehow always had food ready when I needed it. She wasn't expressive, but she was consistent, reliable. That was what made me fall for her. There was a moment I used to think defined our entire relationship. Senior year, during a severe winter storm, the school had to evacuate early. Everyone rushed out in panic, slipping on ice, trying to get home before the roads closed. I remember losing my footing on the stairs and hitting the ground hard. People ran past me like I wasn't even there, but Rachel, she turned back. She fought against the crowd, grabbed my arm and helped me up. She didn't say anything dramatic. She just made sure I was steady and walked beside me all the way out. Later, when I asked her why she came back, she shrugged and said, "It didn't feel right leaving you behind. Ambitious, sharp, always pushing forward." I admired that about her. When we got married, I promised myself I would support her no matter what, and I did. When she worked late, I waited. When she forgot anniversaries, I reminded myself she was tired. 3 years ago, I was offered a position in New York. It was a major step up, better salary. International exposure, the kind of opportunity people wait years for. But it came with one condition: constant travel. I would barely be home. When I told Rachel about it, she didn't hesitate. She said it wouldn't work, that she needed stability, routine, something predictable. So I turned it down, told my boss I wasn't interested. At the time, it felt like the right decision. Now, lying in that dark room, I realized something I had never allowed myself to admit. I had been the only one making sacrifices. The next morning, I got out of bed early. Rachel was already awake, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Her expression looked normal, but there was a faint redness around her lips and neck. A reaction. It's probably from the mango cake she had eaten the night before. Or maybe from kissing someone who had. I didn't ask. I didn't need to. I walked past her toward the door, grabbing my coat, ready to leave for work. But before I could step out, she stood up and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was firm, almost defensive. "Why are you acting like this?" she asked, her voice slightly irritated. "Is this because I couldn't spend time with you yesterday?" I told you I had work. I looked at her hand on my wrist, then slowly back at her face. For a moment I wondered if she actually believed what she was saying, or if she was just trying to convince herself. "You've always said you support my career," she continued. "Do you have any idea how hard it's been for me to get where I am? I can't just ignore responsibilities." I gently pulled my hand away. "I'm not stopping you," I said calmly. That was the truth. I wasn't going to fight her for attention anymore. I wasn't going to compete with another man for my own wife. Before I could say anything else, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and the change in her expression was immediate. The tension in her face softened, her eyes warmed, and without thinking, she answered. "Hey," she said, her voice lighter now. I didn't need to hear the name. I already knew. On the other end, a male voice came through faintly, casual and familiar. He was complaining about the cold, joking about being late, asking her to pick him up. The way he spoke to her It wasn't respectful, not even careful. It was comfortable, too comfortable. Rachel sighed softly, almost smiling. "You're unbelievable," she said. "Fine, I'll come. But you owe me breakfast." Something inside me settled at that moment. Not broke, not shattered, settled. Like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. As she hung up, she looked at me again, this time with a hint of guilt in her eyes. "It's just work," she said quickly. "He's a junior. He messes up a lot. I have to keep things running." I didn't respond, because explanations only matter when they're true. She hesitated, then grabbed her coat and hurried toward the door. "We'll talk later," she added before leaving. But I already knew. There was nothing left to talk about. That day at work, I didn't think about her once. Instead, I walked straight into my manager's office and told him I was ready to accept the position I had rejected years ago. The one that required constant travel. The one that would take me far away from everything I had built my life around. He looked surprised at first, then relieved. "Are you sure this time?" he asked. I nodded. "I won't change my mind." And I meant it. For the first time in years, I wasn't making a decision based on Rachel. I was choosing myself. By the time I got home that evening, something inside me had already shifted. The apartment didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place I was preparing to leave. Rachel was sitting on the couch again, but this time she looked more anxious than calm. She kept glancing at me as if trying to figure out what I was thinking. Finally, she spoke. "Are you still upset?" she asked carefully. I looked at her for a long moment. Then I said something she wasn't expecting. "We should end this." The words were simple, quiet, but they hit harder than anything I could have shouted. For a second, she didn't react, like she hadn't processed it yet. Then her expression changed completely. "Wait, what?" she said, her voice shaking slightly. "What are you talking about?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I didn't mention Ethan, the photo, the lies. I just looked at her and repeated it. "We're done, Rachel." And for the first time since I had known her. If you stayed till the end, you already know this wasn't just about cheating. It was about silence, patience, and knowing exactly when to walk away. Some people don't lose you because they made a mistake. They lose you because they were sure you would never leave. So tell me something honestly, when respect is gone. Do you fight for love or do you disappear without warning? If this story made you feel something, stay, because the next one won't just hurt. It'll hit even deeper.